Welcome to the Independent School Podcast with me, Juliet Corbett. I'm a trusted advisor, executive coach and strategist working with accomplished leaders who are navigating complex challenges, the kind that can feel a bit like a tangled ball of string, confusing, frustrating and quite hard to unpick. It is great to be back behind the microphone for the Independent School Podcast after a little bit of a gap. Although I haven't been publishing here regularly, leadership certainly hasn't got any simpler since I stopped. There are various different projects that I've been working on over the last year or two that have made me realise that this is the moment that I want to come back into the Independent School Podcast and share with you what I'm seeing differently and fresh. A little bit of a contrast to how I might have been seeing things before. Now, this is a sign of good leadership. All of us need to be looking for new ways to see the world, new angles, new lenses, new ways of understanding the best steps that you can make as a leader to help your organisation move forwards. And there are a few things that I've been doing that have helped me to see things differently now. One of those is that I've been coaching and working as a trusted advisor to many principals, heads and CEOs of both independent and international schools. And so as I have more hours of conversations with those people, I'm getting to see things slightly differently, things shifting in the marketplace, things shifting in the way that we are leading communities within our schools and the way that we are engaging with our staff in those communities as well. I've also been publishing regular episodes for the Quiet Leadership Revolution, my other podcast with my co-host Lucy Gower. And together we've been exploring over 45 or so episodes, various different topics which are really relevant for school leaders, as well as being relevant for all leaders of any organisation. Things like making time to think, which is actually one of the most popular episodes that we published, surprisingly. Having courageous conversations, delegation, slowing down to speed up and why that's actually true and why it works, coaching skills for leaders and various other different topics. And what I've realised is that all of these ideas are starting to cement themselves into a structure, a way that I can help leaders to navigate complexity and uncertainty. And I'm starting to put together a book. It's in the really early stages at the moment, but what I'm realising is that I can create a really powerful and quite simple structure for how leaders can be more sustainable in their leadership and help others around them to be more sustainable as well, to maintain that energy, not to burn out, to make sure they can keep going with that stewardship of their organisation for year after year. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And it's also about balancing and having clarity and courage so that leaders can make the bold decisions that are needed when the stakes are really high. So as my thinking about leadership and strategy has started to evolve over time, I've realised this is the moment I wanted to come back onto this channel, this way of speaking to the world in this podcast, and to reignite some of the conversations that we were having here. I think it's because the challenges that are being faced by school leaders are getting even more complex, and I'm seeing new ways of being able to lead that complexity. So what I'm going to be doing is launching a new series of episodes, which we're going to all be interviews, one-to-one interviews with principals, heads and CEOs of independent and international schools. And while each of those conversations has its own lens, because each of those leaders is leading a slightly different school community, I'm interested in exploring with those guests three big themes. These are things that recur frequently in my coaching and advisory calls and are really critical for leading in this world of complexity. So I'm going to run through those themes really briefly now so you know what to look out for in January, and I'm going to point you to some resources that you can go and explore if you're a little bit impatient and you don't want to wait until the interviews are published. So the first of those themes is staying strategic amidst the daily bustle of leadership. You'll have experienced this. I experienced this. Every school leader does. Every leader does, let's be honest. When you're in a leadership position, you need to be staying strategic, but it's really easy to get pulled into the operational noise of the day-to-day and to start becoming really reactive and firefighting. And left to its own devices, that tendency means that you don't provide your school with enough direction and strategic thought and kind of ambition, strategic ambition and focus. And the reason that happens is because strategies get squeezed into whatever time is left in your diary. The half hour here, the 90 minutes there, occasionally a little bit longer when you do a strategy away day or something like that with your team. But really what you're trying to do is squeeze one of the most important parts of your job, which is being strategic, into whatever gaps you have left in your diary. You just can't be strategic if your strategy is always the thing that gets pushed to the end of the list. It doesn't work that way. Now, leaders feel this when there are big decisions to be made. They know that you can't make big decisions based on the leftovers of the time in your diary and the energy and the attention you can give them. For those situations, you do carve out the time. But what about all of the hundreds of decisions that aren't big decisions, but they are certainly strategic decisions? It's really easy to get drawn off course if you're not really aware of this. So the things I want to be exploring with leaders in my interviews are things around protecting thinking time, using strategy as a lens through which all of the operational bustle gets prioritised, helping people to understand the role of their networks and looking back on the experiences that they've had previously in their career, really dialing into the reflection process that's needed for all leaders to be successful. Topics like that. That's the first of my 3 big themes, staying strategic amidst the daily bustle of leadership. The second one is making high stakes decisions, especially when there's uncertainty and complexity. Now, I have to admit, I've got slightly obsessed with the idea of complexity in particular over recent months. The last, 8 months or so probably, I've been doing a lot of reading, a lot of exploring, a lot of discussing it with coaching clients, and really understanding what is it about complexity that makes problem solving really challenging and is then amplified to make high stakes problem solving, high stakes decisions particularly difficult. So one of the most important things around this is understanding where are you solving a problem which is simple. And let's be honest, most of the time, those sorts of problems don't make their way up to senior leadership. They're kind of dealt with by people on the ground. Where is the problem that you're solving complicated? Complicated meaning if we had all the data, we could probably plot out and understand the system well enough to figure out the right answer. There may be more than one right answer, but we could certainly get to a point where we've got a plan, we've identified the milestones, and then we can put it into place and we can be pretty sure that it's going to solve the problem that we've been identifying. That's complicated. That isn't actually what most senior leaders are doing in schools. Most of the time you are dealing with complexity. Now, a complex problem is one where even with all of the data in the world, you probably aren't going to be able to find the one right solution. In fact, you definitely aren't. Because we can't anticipate the way this problem is going to unfold over time. There will be unexpected consequences, ripples through the system, human dynamics, unexpected behaviours. The system is much more complex than we can really visualise fully in our minds. Even if we had the whole team together, we had a fully facilitated strategy away day, it is too complex to fully identify all of the moving parts. In those situations, actually, a 15-step plan is not what you need. What you need instead is the ability to be agile and to be learning as you go, making decisions step by step and learning and being agile in that process. I'm going to share with you in a moment some resources that you can go away and listen to understand that a little bit more. But that's one of the key things I want to be doing in these interviews, understanding what is it about uncertainty and complexity that we can understand in a school leadership context, especially when we need to be making those high stakes decisions. So that's the second big theme. The third big theme, creating and empowering high performing teams. I have lost count of the number of conversations I've had with senior school leaders where it becomes apparent during the course of the conversation that they are carrying quite a lot of weight. That weight of responsibility of getting things right, but also the weight of doing too much themselves and not truly delegating and empowering a high-performing team that they have created around them. The result of that is not great, especially in the circumstances around complexity. No one person can lead through complexity. It is a team sport. I often say strategy is not a game played solo. You need that high-performing team to really be able to deliver success for your school. So we're going to be talking a little bit about delegation, what stops us from delegating, the role of delegating authority, not just tasks. You want to actually give people responsibility, empower them to have the authority to move forward on projects without constantly coming back to the principal or the head. And you don't need to carry everything yourself. And in fact, it creates amazing opportunities for other people who are coming up in their career if you can release control of more things. So that's the third topic, high-performing teams. So you're going to notice these themes are going to run through our conversations. Each conversation will feel a bit different, obviously. Each school leader has their own opinions, their own way of leading, and their own community will be different. What I'm also going to do is put into the episode notes for this episode some links. Each of these topics we've already talked about, Lucy Gower, my co-host, and I, on the Quiet Leadership Revolution podcast. So I'm going to curate a short list of episodes that you can go there to listen with that other podcast so that you can get a sense of some direction in these big three themes before we go into our interviews in January. So once again, those three themes: staying as strategic amidst the daily bustle of leadership, making high stakes decisions, especially in circumstances of uncertainty and complexity, and creating and empowering high performing teams. Okay, so what happens next? Next, we are going to be releasing these interviews that I've been recording starting in January 2026. I've already recorded 3, so I'm going to share the names of those with you now. So that's Louise Simpson, the CEO of the British School in the Netherlands. I've also done a great interview with Charles Bailey, the headmaster of Worksop College and Ranby House in Nottinghamshire in the UK. And I've also had a really good conversation around kind leadership, which is a really interesting concept, and kindness and how that plays a role in our leadership, with Joanna Paval, principal of Wales International School in Abu Dhabi. And I've got more scheduled. I'm not going to share the names because, as we know, sometimes you've got an interview schedule and then it falls through and it can't get rescheduled. So I don't want to promise things I can't deliver. But I've got a number of interviews coming up scheduled that are going to be really interesting for you to listen to. And I'm particularly excited because I've gone for much more global representation in this set of interviews to make sure we're getting that international sense of what we're learning as a school community globally. So I can't wait to share these interviews with you very soon in January. Do go and check out the episode links for that Quiet Leadership Revolution, the little short list that I'm going to give you of other episodes that you can listen to between now and then if you're really, really itching to move on these topics. Thank you for joining me as we begin this new season of the Independent School Podcast. If the ideas I've talked about today resonate with you and you'd like to hear a bit more about my thinking on leading strategically through complexity and uncertainty, I invite you to join my email list. And you can do that by going to www.consultjuliet.co.uk/sign up. And just remember, the biggest challenges you face are rarely solved by working harder. They're solved by thinking differently. And with the right trusted advisor in your corner, that's much, much easier. While I work with leaders across many sectors, my heart and more than 2 decades of experience remain deeply rooted in education. So if you're ready to turn complexity into progress, sharpen your focus, and lead a happier and higher performing team, I'd love to start a conversation with you about how we could work together. Just reach out anytime. Don't forget, the clearest insights often appear when you gift yourself a moment to slow down and let your best thinking surface.